I got stuff for you.
Holy moly. I need to get some snakes and release them around my house.
But they love eating people. They love eating kids.
These guys are the scientists of the supernatural, lecturers leaving lessons for inquiring laymen. They are applying the scientific method to a world that baffles science. They are the cryptids of the corn.
Every day that you open your mouth,
I know, right?
I'm more convinced that you're abducted by aliens.
No.
And it just stood up. I mean, it just like kept going and going. And she goes, what the?
These are idiots.
I was laughing reading this because I already knew how you would feel.
Idiot. What part of the story fits your balloon?
Well,
This isn't a UFO. But who else has big black wings and red eyes?
Batman.
Oh, Mothman.
Oh yeah, Mothman.
Well, everyone, I think we know exactly what it is. So say it all with me. It was the sandhill crane.
Would you try it?
No.
You wouldn't eat it?
No.
Why?
Because they're probably toxic. There'd be a lot of poop in my pants. I've seen a 6-foot alligator go swinging through the air and slam into a tree. Hello, and welcome back to Cryptids of the Corn podcast. I am the great and powerful Mr. E, and there is no Jay tonight. He's gone. He got really scared at tonight's subject because you guys know I always say that he was abducted, and he doesn't believe it, but I think you guys will hear more similarities tonight. Today, though, I am joined by an amazing duo, Leslie and Stephen Shaw, authors of Who They Are and What They're Up To. I had to read it slow because you all at home know I'm dyslexic, and I wanted to get it right because these guys are amazing, and we're going to have a really fun night. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you so much for having us.
Love to be here.
Now, you're one of the guys that, like we kind of talked off air, messaged me all the way back in February to get on the show, and it's happening, and we're recording this in September. It'll come out in October. It's all the listeners at home know me and my wife were at the Toledo for the babies for about 11 weeks. So thank you guys for hanging in there because not everybody did. So I really appreciate it. We really are happy to have you tonight.
Yes, I can't think of a better reason for having to postpone things.
I don't like to ever postpone it that long. Oh, thank you.
Oh, yes, and congrats.
Thank you. We're done.
Yes, that's it.
We had 3 under a year, so we're happy.
Yeah, that's really pushing it right
Wow.
Yeah, there's a 1 year and 4-month-old in there, and then there's 2 4-month-olds.
Gosh, they're going to at least be able to play together. They'll be playmates.
Yeah.
That's great.
He's been really cute, like kissing them and stuff like that. They are in the rocking swings, and he'll hold the swing still, and you'll see how gentle he'll try to get close to him. But no, so if you guys can, before we get rocking and rolling and talking about all kinds of unique stuff tonight, I would love for you guys to reiterate your book, any of the links you want to send people to, how they can get your guys' stuff, how they can get a hold of you, that kind of stuff. And then once again, everybody at home, I always put all the links in a big block down right below this episode. So you guys want to get the book, you want to get a hold of these guys, that's the way to do it.
Yes, thank you.
Leslie, the book.
It's Who They Are and What They're Up To, and it's available on Amazon and Ingram. It's
Primarily Amazon, though.
yeah, that's for most people. Ingram is used mostly by bookstores, so it's there for both. And we have an Instagram page that we try and stay quite active on and gather stories on, and posted all of Stephen's family's stories on it because there's so many of them. We can never talk about all of them in one podcast. We have that at leslie.shaw.author, and that's Leslie, LESLIE.SHAW.author.
And also to our website is whotheyareBook.com.
Yes. And
we have a lot of reels and a lot of other stuff too.
Yeah, and we have a speaking, we're doing a lecture presentation on the subject in 29 Palms, November 8th at the 29 Palms Book Festival.
We are also trying to arrange to do some as be leaders for experiencer groups.
Yeah, we want to start running experiencer groups.
And we've also done a couple of documentaries.
Yeah.
That they'll be coming out hopefully soon. So.
Very accomplished. You say that's it? Like it's just this whole big list of awesome stuff. No, it's really amazing. The experiencer group's really cool. We only I'm in Northwest Ohio. Ohio only has a handful of ones. Our friend Linda Sigmund, one of the Mothman eyewitnesses, she's in the what is it? The Circleville UFO group. It's the only one I can even think of in our state that is popular, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 3.5 hours away from where I'm sitting. So
that's pretty far. Yeah. You have to really want to go and talk about your experiences.
But the book, can't wait. Everybody, seriously, get it. If you can go to the Royal Palms, is that where you said it was, or the speaking engagement?
At the 29 Palms Book Festival.
29 Palms Book Festival. I can't remember a thing. But no, because I am a big fan of getting books signed. Like if I buy a book, I really like to have it signed. So go get it signed, everybody.
There you have it.
And then once again, all the links are below in the description. So when we have you guys on here, we kind of let you guys start the path. So whatever you guys want to talk about, and I'm just going to sit here and listen and have a cold one and ask questions.
I'm a semi-retired journalist for the last 20 years, and Stephen is a retired acupuncturist and Tai Chi master who's also an orchestral musician. We've been studying this phenomenon for decades because of what happened in Stephen's family in his early life, and I'll let him start there.
Yeah, I really started to do my serious research around about the age of 30, 31, just around about the time when I became a state licensed acupuncturist here in California, because things were just not adding up for me. Things I kept on hearing from my parents that they were still experiencing, things that I was experiencing. And then, I happened to pick up the first release of Admiral Byrd's Lost Diary. And that really intrigued me. And I thought, well, see, the thing is, I was taught from a very young age that we had this, what we called a family spirit guide, whose name was Old Glegley, okay, that had been with the family for 4 generations. Basically, always described as being very tall, skinny, about 6.5 feet tall, would appear differently to different people, and would show up at certain different times. Like, for instance, to save my uncle's life post World War II in Sri Lanka, which was Ceylon at the time.
It seemed to be both preying on the family and protecting the family.
Well, yeah, it did both. Okay, it was both also a helper, but also it's like basically necessity. So for me, the first experiences I had with this entity was when I was 3 years old. I would be relatively frequently visited by this 2-legged entity that would jump on my stomach and my chest when I was in bed, and kind of playfully. And so and
it was invisible.
Invisible, mm-hmm. Yes, of course. Thank you. It was invisible, and it wasn't a cat. It wasn't a dog. We didn't have those at the time.
No invisible ones, certainly.
Especially not invisible ones. I just accepted it as being, okay, this is part of what the Shaw family is. And so I never really talked about this stuff at all with my friends at school, because either they're going to say either you're nuts, or you're just lying, or you're living in a haunted house. But we did talk about it from time to time with my family. So when I was about 8 or 9 years old was the first time that I saw what I call garden gnomes, shimmery garden gnomes. I saw like 4 or 5 of them in the middle of the night walking into my bedroom. I was on the top of a bunk bed, and my brother was 6 years younger, so he's probably about 2 or 3 at the time. He was sleeping on the bottom of the bunk bed, and I saw these garden gnomes, and they were like about 1.5 foot tall, and there were about 4 or 5 of them. And I looked at them for a while, and I just kind of turned over because I did not know what was going on. I was a little scared, actually.
Yeah.
So, anyways, a few years later, when my brother turned about the same age, sorry, he started sleeping in our bedroom closet. And I asked Philip a few different times, I said, Philip, why are you sleeping in the closet? He said, well, I'm afraid of little men that come at night. And he described them to me and says, "Oh yeah,
I've seen those.
I've seen them. Okay, I've seen them." And so he did that for 2 years. Anyway,
Sleeping in the closet.
sleeping in the closet was kind of a weird thing anyway. But he was afraid of little guys that would come in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
But I understood. So when I was around about 11 or 12 was when I saw my first UFO, and it was about 9:30 at night. It was the winter time, and I just happened to be passing, from the kitchen to the front door, and I saw this large orange globe that was kind of moving horizontally from south to north.
Kind of slow, right?
And it kind of, yeah, and it was pretty big. And it kind of stopped for a little bit, and then it kept on going, always horizontal. And I thought, oh my God, what is that? It's not an airplane. So
back up to when you were down the hallway, coming down the hallway.
Oh yeah, okay, right, of course, yeah, right.
That was before that.
That was before.
This is how me and Jay tell stories, just so you guys know.
Yeah. For me, like for instance, the most scary thing that I saw at that time was when I was about maybe a couple years younger than that, and I was awakened again in the middle of the night. I was on the top of the bunk bed, and I heard this strange sound that I didn't recognize. And so I got out of the bunk bed and I started walking down the hallway. There was the light on in the kitchen, so I could see, but I remember very vividly that my heart was pounding, and I was scared. Okay, it's not something that that's like in a dream state or whatnot, but I was physically scared. So my blood pressure was elevated and whatnot, and I did not know what I was going to see. I did not even understand what I was going to see. And before I could get to the living room, I just black out.
Just right before he's going to turn the corner.
I just black out. Next thing I know, a few hours later, I'm back in my bed and with no recollection of what happened in between.
And this theme keeps recurring in the family again and again and again, where they'll see something frightening or weird or strange, and then
to my dad,
and
my
then
mom,
black out.
Right, exactly.
They black out and wake up again 6 hours later in bed, or 3 hours later in bed.
So it was like, I never, I'm still trying to get clarity on that as far as like, what actually was happening, because I just do not know.
We haven't been able to. We tried hypnosis with Stephen, but we haven't been able to break through those blackout periods to see what was there.
So let's fast forward to when I was 18.
Yeah, that's the really weird week.
1979, the whole family, all 5 of us, experienced this in different ways, or all together.
Over 5 days or so, right?
Now, we were building, because I was a carpenter and a cabinet maker, and my dad was a master cabinet maker, and we were building our own house ourselves up in Sonora, California, which is in the lower Sierras. So, but I was living and working as a cabinet maker with my dad in Woodland Hills. So the first night, this weird event happened that during breakfast time, my dad said, Stephen, my closet doors opened and closed on me last night. And then I went back to sleep. I said, okay, Dad, sounds like an interesting dream.
They shrugged it off.
I kind of thought, we went to work. I didn't think too much of it. Now, at this particular time in my life, I was starting to study Tai Chi, and I was also very much into Paramahansa Yogananda's work, like autobiography of a yogi and his metaphysical meditations. So anyways, about 9 o'clock at night, I had been reading his metaphysical meditations. It's like a little booklet, And I thought, my dad might be interested in this. At the time, my mom and my brother were living in the house up in Sonora, California, which is 350 miles away, because he was going up to school up there, and we needed somebody to take care of the house, and we were building it anyway. So anyways, we were like a partially separated family. So anyways, I gave him the book to read, and about a half an hour later, he came into my bedroom saying, Stephen, I'm hearing silver bells. Now, my having been a musician since I was the age of 7, I knew what a silver bell sounded like. So I went to the living room, and sure enough, there was this silver bell being rung, going ding, 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 and it was coming from inside the wall by the fireplace. And so we looked up the fireplace, up the flue, and tapped on the wall.
They got Karen to
and then
come
we got
hear
my
it,
sister, my sister
Yeah.
who was 5 years younger, so she was 13, wanting to have nothing to do with all this kind of stuff, right? And so as soon as she came into the room, she said, "Where's that bell coming from?" And so we banged on the wall, doing the same thing, went on for about 10 minutes, and then it stopped. So the next morning, which was our tradition, we would always call my mom and my brother to find out how things are going up in Sonora. And my mom said, "No, Jeffrey, the weirdest thing happened about 9:15, 9:30 last night. I heard this bell, and I thought it was the phone. So I picked up the phone, and there was this baritone voice on the other side saying, 'I am the invisible Ambichi,' or something like that."
Yeah.
And I just kind of thought that was kind of funny, because I've been told about this old Glegley character like since I was 3 years old, right? So I talked to my brother, got my brother on the phone, and my brother said, you know, the phone didn't ring, but Mom did pick up the phone, and she was having this conversation. So he didn't hear the ringing, but my mom heard the bell ringing at the same time that this was happening. Okay, so the following night, I was sleeping back in my bedroom, this time on the bottom of the bunk bed, and I was awakened by this whizzing sound in the air going, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And I thought, well, maybe it's a bug or something like that. So I kind of looked down the hallway, and there's nothing there. So I went to go back to sleep again, and then my bed was pushed twice from the base of the bed, like push, push. And I thought, well, maybe it's a mini earthquake or something, living in Southern California. And then it pushed again, push, push, a little stronger. And then trying to ignore it, and then it goes push, push, like wake up, right? So I'm thinking to myself, somebody's playing a trick on me, or something's going on. And then I get 3 taps, like an index finger going tap, 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 right on the middle deltoid of my right arm, because I'm laying on my left side. And at this point, I'm like aggravated and scared. And I rolled over, and I said, "What?" And I could tell there was something shimmery there. It was like shimmery, but I couldn't see a face. And then I black out. Now, I told my dad in the morning, my sister went off to school. Again, not wanting to have anything to do with this. And my dad and I just like, what is going on? So anyway, so the next night I decided not to sleep in that room. So I decided to sleep in my clothes, my work clothes, in the living room on the couch. So I woke up about 5:30 in the morning. Again, this is, wintertime, 1979. And I woke up about 5:30, and I looked at my piano, thinking about what music I was going to play that day, and listening to the fountain in the other room. And from behind me was the front door. And the front door is about 25 feet behind me. And there was this entity that, again, tall, skinny, 6.5 feet tall, roughly, that was blue-white, that just kind of knew that I was awake and just walked, didn't actually even walk, just like floated vertically in about 1.5 to 2 seconds, and stopped by my right-hand side. And when it stopped by my right-hand side, the whole right side of my body just became completely frozen.
And all the room was flooded with the same light.
All the room was flooded with blue-white light. It was like the whole house was flooded with blue-white light. And I already had my right eye open, but I could not close it, even if I wanted to. It's like this basically, my right side of my body, complete right side of my body, I could not move.
Like a mini stroke almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a mini stroke, but a one-sided stroke, but just happens like that.
Yeah.
And it bent down, and whispered into my ear, not inside my head, but whispered into my ear, "Hi, Steve." Kind of, I couldn't tell whether it was male or female, but it definitely
knew its name.
It definitely knew my name. And I was thinking, I am going to see old Glegley. I'm going to see this spirit guide that I've been told about since I was 3 years of age. So part of me is going like this, right?
Excited, yeah.
The other half of me is saying, "Dude,
we're gonna die.
You can't move." So the logical part of me is saying, "You can't do anything," and the other part is saying, "Wow." And I'm trying to look at this face. I know that it's blue and white. I know the whole room is filled with blue white. And I guess that the entity just figured out that I was a little bit too scared, and after about 5 or 10 seconds, just basically left, went out the front door, went back out the front door. So I told, then I black out
Again.
okay? Again. I told my dad and my sister about it at breakfast time, and again, we have no idea what to think about this, right? So,
but the weirdest part is he pulls the coins out of his pocket later, and they're all magnetized.
11:30 in the morning. My dad and I were just starting to get, hungry for lunch, right? So I said, I'm going to go down and get some lunch, and I pull the coins out, put them on the table, and all of the coins are all magnetic. Okay, which is supposed to be impossible. My dad and I could pick up the coins by the edge, by the face, it didn't matter. And so, this is 1979. We didn't have smartphones and whatever. So we just, again, all this weird stuff was happening, right?
And they just had to go back to work.
So
fill the order,
The final thing that happened, the final night was that this is something I have no recollection of whatsoever. My dad was awakened by this bright blue-white light that was just shimmering outside of my bedroom door, because we had a hallway between us, so we could see each other's bedrooms, right? And he was a cop in England, from 1952-56. He was a bobby, and before that he was also in the Royal Air Force. So he was like one of these no-nonsense guys. Grew up during the war as a kid, World War II. So he saw this blue-white light. He said, I'm going to get to the bottom of
this. What's all this then?
What's all this then, kind of thing, right? So he's getting out of bed, saying, what is going on here, right? And he got this voice in his head saying, Jeffrey, just go back to sleep. Nothing to see here. Everything's fine. And just go back to sleep. And that's exactly what he did.
Actually, I believe they have a consciousness dampening field that they can turn on and knock people out, because you're a cop and you see a blue-white light flooding out of your son's bedroom. Are you going to take the word of the alien voice in your head and go back to sleep?
I have that absolutely zero. I have zero memory of that. Right. I have no idea whether they took me, whether they took some of my sperm or whatever. I have zero memory of that. My dad's the one that has the memory. I don't. So and this is not an uncommon thing in our family. This goes back to the Newman line in Germany, to the Roe and the Shaw line in England, and then to the Griffith and the Shaw line in California. This is not like just relegated just to one site or one house.
Yeah.
It seems to come in clusters too. Tell them about Phillips 3 clusters.
Well, let's pause for just a second. I have a lot of stuff written down.
Sure you...
Okay.
I'm super excited. You actually gave me chills and turned my stomach, and I'll tell you why here in a minute. So, and Leslie, I agree with you about the suppression system or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or I don't know what it is, but they dull you. It almost seems like.
Yes.
Make you
very much so.
Some people can fight against it or whatever, like to continue, but it's not like you said. Like he's a cop. Like there's lights flooding in the room. You should be running in there,
right?
And you're calm. It's yeah. So way back, I wanted to ask more about the gnomes. So can you describe those again for me?
Okay, all right. I'm the one who witnessed them, and so did my brother. They literally were about a foot to about maybe a foot and a half at the most. And they literally, this is like back in the mid 60s, and we did not have, televisions in our room or anything like that. And the only television we had at that time was in the living room, and it was black and white.
And the little gnomes were in colored costumes.
They were colored, and they were shimmery. And there were 4 or 5 of them, and they definitely let me know that they were there. And I looked at them for a couple seconds, and then I got scared by them. I turned over, and I kind of blacked out. When my brother told me the same thing when he was about the same age when I first saw them, I believed him because I had seen the same thing. Okay, so I don't know why they appeared that way, but
they actually appear a lot of different ways to the family. It's my surmising that I think what happens is that they try and alter the memories of the abductees, especially when it comes to the face of their abductors.
100%.
People will remember seeing them as owls or seeing them as gnomes. His parents saw them once, or his mother rather saw them as these little Chinese people dressed in full Chinese regalia, dancing around the room. So they modify the memories, but frequently the family would describe these altered memories as shimmery.
Yeah.
And I think that's the sign of memory tampering,
Messing
at
with
least
that.
in the Shaw family.
No,
Yeah.
I think you're 100% right. We're around like 500 episodes now or something like that. We've had plenty of, we've been blessed to have tons of amazing experiencers on to kind of, we get to hear these encounters. And that's something that stuck out across, and we talked about it off air, is that, when you do this long enough, you guys have been doing it much longer than I have, but you hear these things, across other people's things. I never told anybody that. Why is that the exact same that we experience? So the screen memories, or whatever you want to call them, the forced memories. We did a couple of episodes about the owls. People that like, well, I seen a weird owl, and then they think about it like, why was the owl 4 foot tall and in my room? Like what?
Right.
Like you talked about that already. This like dampening or dulling of the senses that when you get around, and you're like, why didn't I question why there was a 4 foot owl in my room? Why is that acceptable? That's just as weird as, a gray standing in here when you really think about it. So yeah, I'm glad you said the gnomes, because we've had people on that have seen gnomes or elf-like things before, and they were also a family experience.
Yes.
So that was a thing that really stuck out to me, and I believe he's from, he gave me a fake name. I know his real name, but he gave me a fake name for the show, so I'm not going to say his name.
Sure.
I don't want to get him mixed up.
He wishes.
Yeah.
As his
But
wish
he's
comes
from...
Yeah, we have a friend ourselves that we are
prefers to remain anonymous.
Yeah,
Yes.
she uses a fake name.
She was an abductee
but
as
she's
well.
she actually has crystals and things that we can actually verify. They're actually growing.
Yeah, her house is very bizarre.
She lives on a ley line.
She's
and
on.
things are,
I think she's on where a ley lines cross, like a node or something.
These things are growing.
Yeah, her house is very bizarre.
She's had relationships with this entity called Sumi.
A gray alien that took her as a child regularly, named Sumi. All her paintings are of this being. She's still in communication with Sumi, and I guess they didn't like her as much as they liked Steve. After her abductions, they always left her face down on the hardwood floor next to her bed, where good old Steve here was always tucked nicely back in. That was nice,
Well, it's like,
yeah, they liked my semen or something. I don't know.
But the same guy actually had the blackouts too, and that's another thing that stuck out with where he had. I'm sure you guys have heard of it, but for everybody at home, like the mirrored men phenomena. So he was literally outside and he seen a deer, but the more he looked at it, he realized it wasn't a deer. And it was Cincinnati. We don't have elk, we don't have none of that. We have deer. That's the only, big mammal like that we have. So he's staring at this thing and his dog freaks out running away from a big Rottweiler, takes off from this creature. And he just
You're on your own, buddy.
kind of remembers the deer starting to get up and realizing it wasn't a deer. The next thing he comes to, it's 6 hours later. And he's just sitting in the living room watching TV. Then that night, he was laying on the floor watching TV, like on his belly, waiting on his wife and kids to get back from, I think it was like Bible camp or something like that. And he freezes again. And he can't move. And he literally has these 3... like men in black, mirrored men type entities, walk in his living room, walk across him, and disappear into the house. And then the next time he realizes he's in bed, it's like 4 a.m. His wife said, we came home, you were already asleep. Like, we just got, like, they came home like 5 minutes after he had the experience. His last one was a gray experience, or a gray-like thing. It kind of looked like the gray. I don't know what it, when nobody knows what it was. Right. And they had him pinned on his bed, and he snapped into consciousness in the middle of it. And he, I'm Christian, so that's my worldview. But he rebuked it, and they backed away, and that was the last encounter he ever had. I still know him. He's never had another thing, and it just really nothing good. A lot of these encounters aren't the best at the end. But that's one thing with the missing time.
We can't recommend it.
No.
Right. Because I what we found with our research is that there is a need they have. There's a necessity for what they're doing with us.
Yeah.
Number one, they are not coming from Alpha Centauri, and they're much closer related to us than a lot of people think. Okay, they are basically, that's, for instance, as an example, I was a doctor of acupuncture in Chinese medicine, and one thing you find out after taking all your courses and dealing with people for over 20 years is that there is a psychic component that also interlaces with the alien experience. And it's really not the alien experience, but for instance, Luis Elizondo's book that came out, Imminent, okay? And he talks about, and he became a remote viewer. A lot of people don't realize that, but he actually was trained to become a remote viewer. Like Phil Schmidt, whatever his name was, the detective.
Pat Price, I think.
Pat Price. So anyways, it's something that you can develop. It's like a lot of people don't realize the appendix has a reason for being there. It's vestigial, but it has a reason that it had a reason for being there in the first place, right? So anyway, he learned how to become a remote viewer, and after he became a remote viewer, he and his wife started getting visited by these orbs. These orbs
started sparking paranormal activity,
stalking him, which my brother had that happen to him too when he was 16 years old, 1982. So anyway, to back up a little bit, there's a part of the brain. There's a part of the brain called the parahippocampal gyrus. Parahippocampal gyrus, okay, and that is a part of the brain that apparently that they found that is either bigger or more active in people that have two things happening. They have more psychic ability, and they have more encounters with aliens.
And they're able to remote view frequently.
Right. So these are things that now...
And it's been proven with MRI.
We can prove that. We can prove also, too, with women that have been like impregnated by aliens, or we call them our cousins, and then at the 5 centimeter size, which is about 4 to 5 months in age, when it gets about a certain age, they all of a sudden have this miscarriage that is not a miscarriage.
Yeah, they're taken again, and the fetus is stolen.
And everything is taken. The whole thing, the placenta, everything is taken, just like it never happened. And now that we have the MRIs,
ultrasound
technologies, the doctors can say, yeah, you were pregnant,
and now
it looks like you were never pregnant.
Yeah.
And it'll happen to women sometimes 3, 4, sometimes 4 times
in their lives. All their children stolen away.
So we have proof that this stuff is happening.
Yes.
100%.
And one of the things that, as we started doing our research, in the beginning, this is decades ago, mind you, in the beginning, the theory was that aliens were just interested in us scientifically. They were just taking a few samples, no big deal, a cross-section of humanity. But
R&D.
But that is what we determined that is not what's been going on.
Nope.
Instead, what happens is, like in Steve's family, they find a line of genetic material, genetic genome line that they like, that meets their criteria, and then they prey on that person again and again and again and again through their lives, and then they'll start taking their kids and their grandkids and their great grandkids. So it's tends to be all in the family kind of thing, and the majority, like 9 out of 10 of abductees are Caucasian.
Tend to be.
And that makes no sense. Why would the aliens coming from a distant star systems care about Caucasian specific blood?
Right. Why would they care about something that small in the cosmic scale?
Yeah, we're only 16%
We're 16%
of the population.
world's population. So why would we be taking 90% when it's only 16% of the world's population? It makes no sense.
And I'm telling you, it's so many things were not making sense. Like with this this theory that they're coming from distant star systems, the more and more data we looked at, the more and more it looked like that wasn't the case too. That really we're talking about a terrestrial source for these launchings. I can't tell you how many reports I read, thousands of reports where UFOs were seen coming up out of lakes, up
100%.
out of the ocean, up out of volcanoes, up out of mountains, out of the sides of ridges and mesas, and and what we did is that as the data became more and more ungainly and stopped lining up completely, we looked at the Admiral Byrd stories, the one about where he visits a city of men under the ice sheet of Antarctica called the Ariane in 1947.
Yeah, February 26th.
And, there's all the weird Hitler activity down in Antarctica at that time. And then we came across this documentary, this Russian documentary that outlines what Operation High Jump was all about. In 1947, Admiral Byrd was tasked with destroying a Nazi base under the ice sheet of Antarctica. And that's what Operation High Jump was sent to do. And it was a carrier group. When they get down there, they're attacked by a squadron of these flying saucers that come up out of the ocean and attack them. And I believe that, and we know that Operation High Jump was scheduled for 6 months, but turned tail and ran in 2 months, after just 2 months.
Even less than 2 months, yes.
And Byrd was interviewed saying, we now maybe have an enemy that can fly from pole to pole at incredible speed, And so as soon as we applied the Admiral Byrd stories to our data, suddenly everything clicks into place. Oh, there's a branch of humanity split away from us living under the ice sheet, and they're men. Valiant Thor was a red-haired Caucasian man. The Nordics are indistinguishable from human beings. We think
tall Swedes or Norwegians.
So as soon as we applied that, suddenly all it clicks together. No wonder they want Caucasian DNA. They're Caucasian themselves. An alien race coming here for Caucasian DNA makes no sense.
And
they would have all kind of use for it,
And then also like the mythos that people have like grown up as kids, like you and I, we all did, about vampires. Okay, doesn't it sound so familiar? Like they come in the night. They are powerful. They hypnotize you. They paralyze you. They take your DNA. They can change form.
They're strong.
And they're strong.
Glittering eyes.
And they come and repeatedly, okay?
Again and
it's
again.
It's just the same story.
And the incubus thing. The incubus
and the succubus.
Yeah, like the women are raped by a demon.
Right.
And they become pregnant, but the pregnancy never comes
goes
to
full
term.
Yeah.
They give birth to air, right? So
right. It's the same thing, just dressed up differently.
So
even with sorry.
I'm sorry.
No,
the
ahead.
other thing that wasn't fitting was how many times they're seen.
Yeah.
They're seen they're reported 10,000 times a year, and we think reporting's about 10%.
Right.
So
it's nothing compared to what's actually happening.
Just that alone is pointing to residency rather than visiting, from distant places, right?
So
what's the means, opportunity, and motive?
Right.
The mom theory,
Right.
And
we think. I'm sorry.
No, sorry.
Now it's your turn.
No, I was just agreeing with you that it never made sense to me ever growing up. So I was a biologist. That's what I did. Aliens, I'm a big believer in true quote unquote aliens, as in extraterrestrials from a planet, 100 million light years away, whatever, would be absolutely alien to look at.
Right.
They would not have any of our convergent evolution and all that, but they would not have any of our physiology. These guys are described having, there's the Nordics that, like you said, they're just guys. They're just guys down there, But even the Greys and stuff like that, they have jawlines, they have fingers, they have fingernails. Some of the people describe literally
walk perfectly upright.
Yeah, they're
we do.
They're very, very hominid then they're very human-esque. So
bipedal hominids.
We've
so are the reptiloids and the insectoids. They all have the same.
They're pretty much all
structure.
hominids. There's one alien encounter that I believe happened, and I believe it may actually be a true alien. It's the giant bearded crab people that landed in Kansas. They look like giant crabs And because carcinization here on Earth, everything turns into crabs is kind of a joke in biology circles. But
South Park did one of them.
yeah,
South Park
crab
crab
people, and they lived underground too.
They sure did.
We did an episode on the uncanny valley. I'm sure you guys know, but for the recap for everybody at home listening, it's a genetic fear. There's 4 genetic fears humans have. And a genetic fear is not a learned fear. It means that we had enough problems of it in our ancestors past that we have a genetic inherent fear of it. One is spiders.
Like the bubonic plague and the rats and stuff. Yeah.
One spiders, snakes, darkness, and human-like things. So that's why it's then they did this uncanny valley. It's between like 92 and 98% human-like. Like we think it's goofy, terrified of it, then we like it. So that means that
it's kind of
we were preyed upon from something
like
that was we were preyed upon by something that was that close to being human-like, but enough of a difference that when you looked at it, you knew it wasn't a human. Sorry, go ahead. You made me think of that.
No,
it was.
That's okay. But, the 2 out of the 4 things you're talking about there, Leslie can verify this that I like snakes.
I love snakes. There's 3 in this room.
I will literally go and pick up a snake and then put it around my neck, and then within about 5 minutes, the snake loves me, right? And same thing with spiders. I'm not afraid of spiders. I mean, there's some things I am afraid of, but those 2 things I'm not.
But you were your fear levels were tested as a child.
You had a little bit of a different childhood than most.
You're not afraid of nothing.
And I think a genetic fear is like 92% of the population or something like that. It's a chunky number. It's not everybody. Like you said, I was a kid that always loved snakes. There's 3 pythons in this room. There's a picture of me 4 years old dragging around my uncle's python.
There you go.
So, it's not everybody, obviously, but it's this inherent fears. And you talking about these things, these human-like things living underground, preying upon families and preying upon people for whatever they're doing. That's that's kind of what this other equation. It was made by a Japanese guy in like the 50s, I think, describing this inherent fear. That's why people don't like dolls. There's people that really love dolls, but
clowns or dolls.
It's that you look at it and you're like,
human.
That's kind of human.
Sometimes creep me out a little, to be perfectly honest.
Apes. I just want to interject here. We have this good friend who's like this fantastic stained glass artist. Okay, I won't tell her name, but she was studying to be an oceanographer. Okay, maybe 20, 30, maybe whatever years ago it was, and she turned us on to a couple of books, because she also read our book and that kind of stuff. And these books are about seaweed and kelp, okay, and about how they developed on our planet. And the funny thing is that all this research was done by women, okay, not by men, but it was kind of like, the men said, oh, I don't want anything to do with this, right? But it turns out when you really look into the research, is that it adds even more credibility to our theory that
if something came here from another planet, they wouldn't be able to survive in our ecosystem without 100%. Being the victim of a vicious attack by our, like the Mars
attacks
thing, where the War of the Worlds,
War of the Worlds, a bacteria killed him.
Right.
Yeah, the smallest thing killed him. Exactly.
Like, we've paid for our residency here on this planet with millions of years of dying and
fighting.
Building resistance and dying and building resistance to things.
It's just like when you read the actual information, it's like, man, you're right.
Yeah.
That it's like even more less
likely
likely
that you could just wander onto a living planet and expect to live there, colonize it and live there.
Yeah.
Although, a lot of people ask us, once they hear our theories that we're basically a breakaway branch is launching these UFOs, once they hear that theory, they ask us, well, what about aliens? Are there aliens involved at all? And we think, yeah. But we have to back up 300,000 years ago when we think we may have been uplifted by the Anunnaki. because it actually shows in our genetic material that when the Broca's brain was developing, that part of the brain,
The neocortex,
And-
300,000 years ago. Yeah.
yeah, 300,000 years ago, and it looks like there's a cut and paste job on our genome. It's like, looks like we've actually been
Yeah,
uplifted.
Jason Martell talks about that at I went to one of his lectures, and it looks like that there was actually a cut and paste job done, like a type of CRISPR technology, basically to give us the ability to be able to speak and think. Like, for instance, like, people say, well, these aliens, they must be able to like speak 7,000 different languages. No, they don't.
They're telepathic.
They're telepathic.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, it doesn't matter what language you're thinking about. When somebody says in that language, tree, okay, tree, you don't think about how. The first thing you don't think about how to spell tree.
TREE. Yeah.
Right. The first thing you do, you see a picture
In your
of
mind.
a tree.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter whether it's an oak tree, a manzanita, whether it be a baobab tree. It doesn't matter what. You see a picture. Okay.
Right.
Because anyway, things such as like the English language are about 4, 5, 6 levels beyond, let's say, pictorial language. So that's why the original languages were pictorial. Like,
Yeah.
like for instance, Chinese, like drawing a man that was walking during the daytime would
Hieroglyphics.
be differently, than a man walking during the nighttime. So everything was done pictorially. So the thing is that they don't have to speak 7,000 different languages. They just speak
Mind to mind.
mind to mind.
See,
Okay.
that's another thing that points to our theory maybe being right, is these things have the ability to communicate with us telepathically. To me, that sounds like we have the similar brains, if not the exact same brain. And then so one of the things I brought to our relationship was that I studied ancient art history in college. That was my minor.
Yes.
And I studied the work of this Fraser guy who wrote this book in the 1800s. He had hunted down 500 separate flood myths in the ancient lore of 500 separate cultures all around the world. And since then, they've only added to that number. There's about 1,200 separate flood myths that almost all start the same way, with everybody on the planet being warned by God that a terrible flood was coming. So we think since then, that time when I was studying that, more data has come to the surface. There was an extinction level event 13,000 years ago in North America
100%.
that wiped out the mammoth and the mastodon and a bunch of other animals. And we now know the cause of that is the Younger Dryas comet, which impacted where Lake Superior is now. It was an ice sheet at the time, but it impacted there.
12,850 years ago.
Yes. And it was such a devastating thing that we think it wiped out all those animals, and it almost wiped out the human race. It was nearly an extinction level event. And that's proven in our genetic makeup shows that we're not very diverse. And it shows that at one point we must have had a bottleneck where there were only maybe 10,000, 15,000 and
Right.
more
less, right.
individuals that we've generated our entire population from.
That's provable. It's like
Yes.
Leslie is saying. Yeah, and also too, we can see that now with the with what's called the Uccello horizon.
Uccello horizon, the
Yeah.
charcoal layer.
Yeah, charcoal layer that's been found on
It was
4 different
13.
continents.
Yeah, it's 13,000 years old, and yeah, he's right. 10 different countries and 4 continents
in the northern hemisphere.
on the northern hemisphere, showing that all the forests of that time period were on fire
Right,
at the same
burned.
time. And this is indicative of a comet, because when comets hit the atmosphere, they're dirty snowballs, right, with rocks in
Going
them.
40,000 miles an hour.
And so the snow obviously vaporizes immediately in the heat, but then there's these air bursts that happen, and so it was catching fires all over the northern hemisphere, and the tsunamis from that would have been so devastating. We think that everyone who was left on the surface was shoved back into the Stone Age by the calamity, because you couldn't grow crops for 1,000 years after it,
It would
right?
have been
Because
very difficult unless you're in the southern hemisphere.
because of the drastic climactic upheaval after the comet. And so, because it put 1,500 gigatons of ice up into the air as water vapor, and that 40 days and 40 nights thing out of the Bible, you should probably add a 0 to that 40. It's probably more accurate. But we think that this might have been the schism that separated our race. You see, there's a lot of mythos about people going underground.
100%. Yeah. Many cultures across the planet.
We talk about ant people, yes.
And a lot of times it was the upper echelon of the people that got underground. The Druids, the Druids and the Tuatha De Danann. So somebody on this planet, this rock,
had foreknowledge
13,000 years ago, spotted this thing coming. And they warned, so somebody had more advanced astronomy than we give them credit for. And maybe these stories about Atlantis being this really advanced civilization, this advanced city, if Atlantis was on the coastline of the Atlantic Ocean when this thing hit, it was ground zero for Tsunamiville. It would have just, it would have just filled it with water and drug it right out to sea, And that we think that actually has been proven at this swamp bird sanctuary in Spain that
they're not allowed to do any excavation.
Yeah, they can't excavate it, but they've done LiDAR and it's showing rings inside, underneath the.
And you know what? It's exactly where Plato said it was supposed to be.
Right next to the rocks of Gibraltar, just outside the rocks of Gibraltar.
Exactly. Troy was exactly where Troy was supposed to be found.
Yeah, it's the Doñanas bird sanctuary in Spain.
Yeah, that's where it is.
And interestingly, it's in a river delta, and that's where it was. It was supposed to be an island, but so close to the mainland that it had bridges going to the mainland. So we're talking about more like an island in a river delta,
right.
Like there, right? And if you look at the ocean floor just outside of this river delta, it's littered with cut stones, just like the kind of debris you would expect to find from a city being dragged out into the ocean 13,000 years ago.
Yeah, it's amazing, actually.
Yeah. So we surmise that these people are people. They've separated from us 13,000 years ago. They kept their knowledge and technology and culture when they went underground. We did not. That's why they're 13,000 years ahead of us, right?
I want to interject real quickly here. One of the things we found in our book, we have a whole chapter devoted to this, that we didn't realize when we started doing our research, just how frequently these asteroid and these comet and these meteorite
celestial impacts
happen. They have happened. The ones that we know about, they've happened a lot more frequently, more commonly. They've happened a lot.
So it's possible these ancient civilizations maybe even had backup underground cities, to protect themselves from these kinds of events. And
it's safer anyway to start with.
You don't have to worry about tsunamis or lithospheric shifts or lightning or hurricanes.
Now we know that there's an ocean. That we've been able to, with our advanced technology, now we know there's an ocean that's
in the crust,
approximately as big as the oceans that are on the surface of the Earth. Okay, so we have no idea at this point as far as like what the reptilians or whatever the different races that may have developed, given time.
13,000 years to be exact.
As far as technology is concerned, that's a lot of time. I mean, if you look at the last 100 years here on the surface. 100 years ago, we were barely getting ready to go into the air. And now we have, jets going Mach 3 and, we have space shuttles. And that's 100 years, not 13,000.
It's amazing. It's amazing what we've been able to do. And you're right. In 100 years, it's like you look at people, look at women, how women looked 100 years ago versus how women look now. It's like, you're looking at almost like two different. You're looking at a god versus like it's weird. human beings have changed so much in 100 years.
You know, the weird thing is, if you go to a museum, and I went to an armor museum in France, and this is, we're talking about the armor from the medieval times, right? These people were only about 4 foot tall. All of their armor
4 to 5 feet tall.
Small, really small. I'm surprised,
You go to houses that were built a couple 100 years ago in England, same kind of thing.
Yeah, you'll knock yourself out trying to walk through the doorway.
It's like the doorway's like 5 foot tall. It's like you got to let you bend down.
Just imagine sending a linebacker back then. He'd be the king of England in like a week.
Yeah. It's true. It's just you look at what is there in front of your eyes, and it's like, how do you explain it?
And also, this phenomena is both all pervasive all the time.
Yeah.
Everybody's military is being followed by these things, right? And thousands of people are seeing them. Thousands of people have been abducted, and yet it's also thousands of years old. So either they're not visiting from distant solar systems or star systems, or it's incredibly easy to come here. Like, all they have to do is open their garage door, and there's a portal into our atmosphere or something like that.
Right.
But barring that, they are definitely launching from terrestrial sources.
And it's also what their motivation is.
Right.
Their motivation, their story is always the same thing. Stop using nuclear weapons and take better care of the planet.
Oh yes, our book does promise that. It says we promise to tell who these people are, and we also promise to tell you what they want. And what they want is for us to denuclearize. That's the big message that we get from every single quadrant. Whenever they get their message across to us, they want us to stop ruining the planet and to denuclearize. And my point is, why would they care? I'll tell you why. They live here too. If we blow up the planet, we kill them too.
And a lot of people forget. People don't realize that since 1945, we have done well over 2,000 detonations. It doesn't matter if it's North Korea or United States or Russia or whatever. We've done 2,000 detonations, whether it be hydrogen bombs or atomic bombs, since 1945. And if you don't think that doesn't get the attention of
people living underground, might
it's going to get the attention.
Get their notice.
That's right. So
they told Bird much. They said to Bird, normally we don't want to have anything to do with you surface barbarians and your barbaric wars,
But you guys have figured out something that's affecting us as well. No, it's like,
exactly.
You guys have figured out something that's affecting us as well. So now we have to. Now we care. Now we
have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love telling this story because some people know it, some people don't. I'm sure you guys know, but you know what the fastest man-made object ever was, right?
The bullwhip.
The manhole cover.
The manhole cover?
So in Arizona, they had a 5-mile deep hole they started testing the nuclear and atomic bombs in. So they made a new bomb that the first time they'd ever tested it, they detonated it in the bottom of this hole. And when they went out there, the hole was blown off, like it was gone. There was just a crater. And there was a 10-foot diameter, 3-foot thick steel manhole cover that they would put on top. They thought it vaporized. They thought it, the bomb was bigger than we thought. It just vaporized it. It wasn't until 4 or 5 years later we found it in space, going like 16 or 17,000 miles per hour.
Oh my God! We launched it.
Yeah, because it basically we built a giant shotgun, and the manhole cover was the bullet
with a nuclear bomb bullet.
That is funny. But you know what? The first thing to ever crack the sound barrier was actually a bullwhip.
I believe that. No,
bullwhip was the first thing that ever cracked the sound barrier.
But yeah, that manhole cover was always, because you can. They had it on radar for a while. That you could see like this disc. They thought it was one of these UFOs for a minute, and it's just this manhole cover made in, I think, Steel City, in the Ohio, and it's just hurtling through space at like 16,000 miles an hour, left the atmosphere in like half of a second or something like that. But the bomb was bigger. I can't remember. It was a new type of hydrogen bomb, I believe. And they had never tested one that big. and they had no readings on how big it actually was because it destroyed every instrument. And, so they don't, it's hard to record that. It's been amazing so far. I have one more. I know we're at the hour mark, and you guys have so much more in your book. And everybody at home, I've been fascinated so far. This is one that's worth buying. I have just one, and if you can't answer it, I get it, because, we got to save something for the book. What are they doing with the genetic material? I dealt with eDNA, I dealt with genetics. So it's in populations. I mostly dealt with fish and salamanders. I did some mammal work. So is it that they are losing their genetic stability and they're integrating, or what? What's the deal? I'm just curious.
Yeah, good. We wish we knew for sure.
What's your thoughts, I guess?
Theories, but
we think you're pretty close.
Yeah, we think that maybe living underground for that long has made their population non-viable, and they need regular infusions of DNA from surface persons. And the thing same with the cows.
Yes.
We think they took herds of animals underground with them that are also becoming non-viable, and that's what the whole cattle mutilation thing is all about.
The exsanguination. Obviously, you got to look at what they're doing, their means, their opportunity, and their motives. Okay, just like we love watching things like forensic files. But and myself having been in the military and also being also a doctor, that kind of thing, such as a Tai Chi teacher, is that you got to look at what they're actually doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
They start showing up with the Foo Fighters around about 1942. They start monitoring all of our military facilities. Okay, show that they can turn off our
nukes
ICBMs
at will. Yeah,
when they want to.
Deactivate them at will.
Doesn't matter which country. Doesn't matter whether it's in England or the United States.
And
or
they
Russia.
knocked out some of our tests. There's those green orbs shot something at one of our missile tests.
It's always the same story. They need us, but they also don't want us to to screw up the planet.
Blow up the planet.
Obviously they're at least 13,000 years more advanced than we are.
But
they can probably take cow DNA and blood and probably do whatever they want with it.
But we do have some other theories on it. To me, when I see a gray being in my mind's eye, a gray alien, it looks to me like a human being that's been underground for 13,000 years. Like they stayed underground the whole time, maybe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the Nordics discovered them at some point, and we believe that they're utilizing them as kind of a slave race.
I agree with that.
They may be genetically modifying them with our DNA to be this slave race, because they act like automatons. They never show any emotion.
With the
You've
people,
heard the same story.
Yeah, with the people we've had on with the Greys and other entity experiences, they definitely, I 100% agree with you. They seem subservient. They seem almost insect-like. Well, I mean like hive mind-esque, like bees. They're all moving in unison, doing a job. Like you said, there's no emotion. It really didn't seem like anybody's behind the curtain in there, but they're doing the stuff constantly. And then somebody, a tall gray or a Nordic or a reptilian comes in and barks some orders, and then they start doing something else.
Yes. So we have a lot of instances where reptilians are working with grays, and grays are working with reptilians, and grays and Nordics are on the same ship together. So they aren't separate races coming from all over the place.
My brother Philip, when he was 16 years old in 1982, he's the only one that actually saw this old Glegley character as being a tall 6.5 foot gray. He actually saw it without its disguise. I saw it as a blue-white tall entity. My uncle saw it
as a black man,
as a black man with a tall fez. Really? My grandparents saw it as a different thing, but always the same thing.
Yeah.
Tall, skinny, 6.5 feet tall.
But then Philip saw it as a tall gray, and then we realized what we were dealing with.
Right.
Now we know. Now we know what we're dealing with.
We know what we're dealing with.
Yeah. And
for us, at least.
Yeah.
So it could be that they need extra DNA to create this slave race, but
maintain it.
They really stepped up their abduction program at the time when they started following us in World War II in that time period.
Right.
So I surmise that it has something to do with their project of trying to get us to denuclearize. And I think it has to do with their creating people that can pass for human but are really them, and that can infiltrate our society and change us from the inside out.
Yeah, I think they're trying to reintegrate or basically change us from being as barbaric as we are. We still have all the 7 deadly sins. Greed, gluttony, lust, vanity, pride, wrath, and sloth. We still have that, and I think we're made in their image in a sense. So I think they're probably still dealing with similar things that we are, just not as much.
Mm-hmm. Not to the extremes of threatening each other with nuclear and atomic weapons on a whim.
Yeah.
We definitely
wipe out a whole town. Why not?
I mean, keep in mind, those were the nukes in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. The nukes now we probably can probably wipe off a small state or a small country.
Yeah, you're right.
You would
they
never
were huge back then. Yeah, they were huge.
We came up with neutron bombs back in the 60s and 70s, basically where it leaves the infrastructure, but it just kills the biologics. So great, okay, now we've got neutron bombs, so you kill all the biologics, but you leave the infrastructure. What a perfect plan. You take over a country, you kill all the biologics, but you leave the infrastructure.
Yeah, take over the cities all nice and neat and new.
And we don't even, you ever heard of a chemical called rotenone?
No.
I can't say I have.
One of the worst things humans have ever made. So I was a biologist. I dealt with everything, but one of our endangered species works, invasive species. So rotenone kills everything with a nerve system. But the same amount it takes to kill a blue whale will kill a fish the size of your thumb. Wow. It's 100% toxic. There's no plants. It leaves anything that doesn't have, like I said, a central nerve system, it'll leave alone.
Jeez.
And it gets out of the system within 12 hours. So what they use it for in biology is if you catch an invasive species really early, you can dump it all on there. You'll kill everything though. But your hope is that the other local flora and fauna will move back in after. But just think about those when we're talking about these quote-unquote weapons of mass destruction. Nukes are kind of old school. They've been around almost 100 years. We're getting to be having nukes for 100 years on this planet.
Almost, yeah.
And
1945, yeah. Look at it.
I mean, it's 20 years away, or 80 years, I mean, that was when the first, as we quote-unquote, the first nukes we actually knew about. I don't trust the government as far as I can throw them.
The ones they were telling us about, right?
So, you guys have, I know we've covered very little. It's just the stories and the encounters and the thoughts. You've given me so much new stuff to think about. And wonderful. I always love that. I love that because, we've been doing this for, like I said, we have 500 episodes. So that's 1,000 hours or something like that of recorded stuff we've done. So when you ever get your brain returning in this field, it's amazing. And, I'm looking at stuff that we've had in our past and new light. I love to have you guys back on again.
Oh, yes.
In the future.
We'd love to.
And especially with Jay, because I think he has, he's going to listen to this and I really think he's going to light up. I think he's going to write up a big thing of questions for you guys.
Wonderful.
Before we wrap up, if you guys would please, once again, go over who you are, the book, the links, and all of that, and then we'll start wrapping up.
All right. Here's the book. It's what it looks like. Who They Are and What They're Up To by Leslie and Stephen Shaw.
Available on Amazon.
And Ingram. And, sorry, I knocked something over when I put it down. Anyway, Amazon, it's on Amazon and Ingram, and we're at Instagram at leslie.shaw.author. If you have stories you'd like to share with us, please, we'd love to hear it. And if you have questions, a lot of people don't know if they've seen a UFO or not, and we have this criteria chart that we can tell you if you have or not, So write us on Instagram. We'd love it. And we have a website, whotheyarebook.com, where we have blogs and excerpts and links to any podcasts we do.
And we have upcoming documentary.
Right. And we're speaking. We have a lecture on the UFO subject at the 29 Palms Book Festival, November 9th, 3:30 in the afternoon, November 9th.
That's awesome.
Right, dear?
Yeah.
All right, so we have a tradition of how we end the show with every guest. Is here in a second, I'm going to count down from 3. We're all going to scream bye, and the outro will play. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
Sure.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, thank you for listening to Cryptids of the Corn podcast. Remember, the best way to support the show is share it with a friend. But if you are craving more of the J clones
And more from Mr. E.
there's always extra content on Patreon.
And our paid member space on cryptidsofthecorn.com.
We'll catch you next time with more exciting, fun, and informative information. Bye.